The real estate market is starting to change, and there's going to be two outcomes from this. There's going to be agents that thrive, and there's going to be agents that struggle to survive. So what I want to do in this video is break down the 6 things that you need to be mindful of heading into this next phase of the real estate market, where maybe houses aren't going to be selling for $200,000 in 24 hours over list price, every single time. Because it's happening, and it's going to continue to happen, and there's things that you need to do in order to be prepared, because when I got started in real estate, the market was terrible. And what I want to do with you is prepare you to dominate in any market condition, because things are going to change. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a massive separation of opportunity. There's going to be agents that look at what's coming in the future as an opportunity to dominate and take over market share. And then there's going to be others that are not prepared, that didn't watch this video, and that are going to be wondering, what the heck do I do now? Maybe it's time to leave the industry, which is not what I want for you. So without further ado, let's dive into what you can do to dominate in the upcoming market conditions. What's going on, guys? My name is Mike Sherrard with eXp Realty. I train thousands of agents every year to scale their business the modern way with social media. And what I want to do in this video is prepare you for what's coming ahead. Because again, we know things are going to change. We know that likely, whether it be this year, next year, or at some point, the market is going to get more difficult. Things are going to change, and it's going to become a different style of market than it is today. And to give you some context of my background, when I got started in 2017 here in Calgary, Alberta, where we lost like 100,000 jobs that same year, which was like a sixth of the employee workforce because we're tied to oil and gas, I think the stat was 27% of listed homes sold. So I'm not used to what you guys are seeing now, which is homes over list price. You list it and it sells. There's a flock of people lined up open house. I've never dealt with that, right? But I became a top producer in the toughest market. So what I want to do is, from experience, prepare you for what's coming, because we're seeing rising interest rates. We're seeing average days on market start to increase. Maybe not so much in these markets that are super popular to move to right now, for example, Texas and Florida, but there are markets that are starting to see a slow. And that will likely at some point pick up a little bit more. Now, I find this really exciting. A lot of people find it very daunting, and that's where the separation is going to be. So let's dive into some of the stuff that we need to be mindful of in order to make sure that no matter where things go in the months and years to come, that you're armed and ready to go to war and dominate your local market. So the first thing that I want to talk about is framing and mindset, because a lot of people are mentally prepared for the market to change, right? There's so many agents that got into the market right now because they're seeing every house sell for $100,000 over list price on the first day, and they figured they can drop a few grand, get a real estate license, and now they're going to become rich. So you've got this influx of agents that have just had it easier than it's ever been. This is the easiest market that's ever existed. And still, there's agents that are struggling, which really makes things interesting, because again, if you're struggling in this market, just wait for things to change. But that being said, again, tons of agents getting into the market right now and have not developed the skill sets that they need in order to thrive. Most of them don't know how to market because they haven't had to. They list a property, it sells. They don't know how to get additional exposure. They don't even need good communication, because my average days on market in my city, at least, was 73, I think the citywide average was. Well, that means for weeks you need to keep your clients updated as to what's happening with showings, with feedback, with price reductions, with new listings coming on the market, new listings selling, things that have been on the market for 200 plus days selling. And you have to work on communication. Whereas now you list a property, you sell it in the first day, and it's like, hey, clients, here's your incredible check that you just got for your house. Like, the communication hasn't been that big. But for me, when I was focusing on production, that was the biggest feedback, because I was sort of like the garbage man. Like, I was there selling all these properties that other agents in my city couldn't get sold, because I learned marketing and I learned branding and I learned exposure. But whenever I was going up against other agents for listing presentations or for an expired listing, I would always ask, what was the one thing that they didn't like about their past agent? Every single time it was communication. Most people in this market haven't had to learn good communication. So this is going to be something to be mindful of, is that you have to start developing different skill sets that are going to help you separate yourself during times that it's a bit slower, or during a correction, whatever we end up seeing. But it's also framing yourself mentally of just understanding that, hey, this is part of the business. If you talk to any agent that's been in the business for like 40 years, they've gone through multiple corrections. So if you don't think you can make it through one, then how do you think you're ever going to make this lifestyle or a career? You can't, right? So you might as well get used to it now. You might as well prepare yourself to go to battle in a difficult market now, because it's going to happen again. Whereas a lot of people quit and then they never get back into the industry because they couldn't weather the storm. Now that's a really exciting part because you have the ability to get proactive now. You can be proactive about preparing yourself. You can start to learn how to brand yourself more. You can start to learn whether you want to, get my free social media training. You can drop a comment, I'll give it to you. But you can learn how to generate your own leads. You can also learn how to transition your business. A lot of people right now are focusing only on sellers. Well, at some point, buyers become more valuable. Also, you might have to learn about foreclosures and REOs and things like that. Just that's going to be dependent on your market, wherever you're watching this from. But it's really important to be proactive where you start to see interest rates rising. You start to see some of these trickle effects of different market stats coming out about days on market, about average list to sales price, about months of inventory, things like that. And it's really important to start to use that as an indicator of how do you need to be adjusting your business? Because I actually just spent a couple of days with Andy Frizella and Ed Milet, who were my two mentors, in person in St. Louis. And what they were talking about is the ones that win in business, and they're both, approaching, Andy has $1 billion business, Ed's approaching $1 billion, but they're both talking about the fact that the ones that win in business are not the most intelligent and they're not the ones with the most money. They're the ones that are the most willing and quickest to adapt. Adaptability. Right? Because a lot of people are not going to adapt. They're going to say, I've always done business this way. I'm not going to change. I've never been on video, but I've done pretty well. So I'm never going to get on video. And they never adapt, which is why they eventually die. And they start to fail out of the business and they start to fall behind the curve because they're not willing to change. And the ones that win are the ones that say, okay, this market's changing. There's still equally as many opportunities in a bad market, probably more in a bad market than a good market. Because in a good market, everything is fine and dandy. There's a lot of competition because everybody's smelling the roses and they're all excited, and it's very easy for people to get their excitement and energy high because it's just like gravy. Whereas when the market gets tough, it's even more of an opportunity because 80% of agents are going to be sad and depressed and anxious and stressed out and worried about the market and complaining and looking at all these articles that are shared on Inman or the news or wherever and just feeding into it. And what you focus on expands. So they're going to focus on how bad the market is and you're going to dominate and clean up. Because what this becomes is a massive opportunity to gain market share because agents are going to leave the business. And there's two ways to check out. There's two ways to leave the business. You can leave the business in its entirety, meaning that you basically give up your license in its entirety. But there's another way to check out, which is people that stop putting time into the business. They still have a license, but mentally and emotionally they're checked out. And that's going to happen to like 80% of the agents, which for the 20%, which would be you if you're watching this video, is going to give you this incredible opportunity that when everybody's, sad and crying at home about how terrible the market is and how much more difficult it is and properties aren't selling in, 36 minutes. Well, now you can go out and dominate. And you can go scoop up market share. When agents were talking to buyers or sellers and now they left the business, you're the one that they're going to work with. When people are stopping prospecting, you double down. When people are no longer spending money on ads because they're worried about nickel and diming because they didn't save or they don't have proper budgeting, you double down on your ad spend. So this is going to be the best time over the next couple of years for you to gain market share on agents that had clients that probably shouldn't have had clients. They just had the relationship beforehand. So when we really look at this, there's a couple things we need to do. Number one, we need to look at a perspective. A lot of people are going to look at it as a negative. The easiest thing to do in the world is complain. If you look at anybody that wins at a highest level, they find the opportunity in any situation. So they look at this and say, instead of things are going to get slower, that means, prices go down, commissions go down, average days on market might not be as many deals. They say, well, that's what the average is going to think. I'm going to think the opposite. And you start to look at the opportunity within this market, because if you talk to any agent that has come out of the correction, out of the 08, 09, or out of whatever correction they've maybe gone through, they're the ones that are absolutely dominant in the market almost every single time, because they weathered the storm, they got out the other side, they stood their ground and doubled down on the things that they need to do instead of faltering and quitting the industry and giving up because many are complacent. And now they've got all this market share, they become recognized and they skyrocket their business. So the greatest opportunity is coming out the other side of what's going on. But the problem is a lot of people don't have important enough goals to them to help them get through to the other side. So that's why it's really important to have goals that are actually fulfilling, to identify your why and tie it to something bigger than you, your family, your spouse, your kids, generational wealth, things like that, because it's going to get tough. It's going to get harder. And if you don't have something that you can look back on and revert to when things are getting tough, that's why people quit. People quit because they forgot why they got started. And when they don't have something that they feel like they're contributing to, or if they don't have something that they feel like if they fail, this is going to be detrimental, then they give up. But if you have something that is tied to your family and loved ones and, future generational wealth, things like that, you need that to get through these difficult times because it's going to help you push through mentally. This is also why a ton of agents are going to start switching brokerages, right? For me at eXp Realty, we've been having a ton of agents join us because as prices start to ease up and as, the market starts to ease up a little bit, people become more mindful of a couple things. They become more mindful of fees. They become more mindful of splits, of caps, and also having additional income streams. And this is a really important aspect because if you've got a certain, $4,000 of living expenses and we can help you get $4,000 per month in residual income with this model, well, now if you do less deals, you're not going to be as financially stressed, so you can still operate at a high level and continue to push. Whereas a lot of people that go through these corrections with one income stream, that one income stream gets affected. Now you're financially stressed, which causes more emotions, and it causes you to, again, have more anxiety and operate at a lower level, which is usually what puts people into a downward spiral. So that's why it's really important to look at who you're surrounding yourself with. Is the brokerage preparing you for what's to come? And is it future-proofing you, or at least giving you some sort of security blanket if things go a little bit sideways, so that as you push through to the other side, you're going to be building momentum as well. So I think it's important that as we start to head into different market conditions, you start to analyze your business. You start to look at the skill sets that you have. Do you need to learn to market better? Do you need a more solid brand? Do you need a better message? Do you need to be on a new platform? So that as this time gets closer, you put yourself in a very strong position to get ahead of the curve while everybody else is struggling because they waited too long and now they're trying to play catch up, which is never going to happen. So I just wanted to put this out there because I actually went through a very difficult market and I loved that I did, because I knew that if I push through the other side of this, I'm going to dominate. And I'm going to take market share from all these agents that are complacent and lazy and complaining and, looking at the negative of this entire situation instead of looking at the positive and the opportunity. And that's what I want you to do, is start to look at what do you need to do if the market goes down, if there is a correction, so that you don't lose your business. And that's what we can do starting today. And that's why I just wanted to put this out, to give you a bit of a thought process of what you can do to start preparing yourself for what lies ahead. If you have any other questions about it, just drop a comment below, because I do respond to 100% of my comments, and I'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much for tuning in. As always, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.